I wake, and it's already loud. Not the street, not the neighbors. The inside, the mind is a room humming with unfinished sentences, with numbers, with the weight of what I haven't touched yet. I haven't even stood up, and I'm already behind. The day thins as soon as I look at it. I lie there and feel it. The fatigue that isn't just in my body, it's the exhaustion of being a person who keeps going. I used to think tiredness was about sleep. It isn't. I've slept and still felt hollow. This is another kind of tired, the slow erosion of wonder, the quiet ache of being alive in a world that never stops asking for more. The feed scrolls and the calendar stacks and the hours line up like teeth. I move through them and feel myself get sanded down. I don't break, I fade. Some mornings, I stare at the ceiling and ask the question that keeps circling without landing. What happened to me? Where did my hunger go? I used to want things. I used to run toward them. Now I walk, not because I'm wise, but because I can't remember what I'm chasing. The goals have the same names, but they don't speak to me anymore. They look like old posters peeling off a wall I don't live behind. Then I remember, this isn't just me. Look around. Everyone is rearranging their tired. People who do everything right and still feel wrong. People who have enough and feel nothing. People who sit in rooms full of light and can't find a window in themselves. We're not lazy. We're saturated. We're not broken. We're overloaded. We're living at a pace the soul can't metabolize. It's here that Camus enters my room. Not the man, but the voice. Calm, dry-eyed, alive to contradiction. He doesn't offer mercy. He offers clarity. He says the word I've been avoiding, absurd. The absurd isn't the circus of nonsense that life throws at us. It's the collision between what I want from life and what life gives back. I want meaning. Life gives silence. I want assurance. Life gives weather. The absurd is the friction of wanting the sky to answer. I used to hear that and feel threatened. Now it feels like a diagnosis. Of course I'm tired. It's exhausting to demand that the sun write me a letter. It's exhausting to treat every morning like a courtroom where existence must justify itself. No verdict arrives. The trial drags on. Meanwhile, the day slips past like water under a locked door. Camus says the absurd isn't solved, it's faced. You don't negotiate with silence. You stop bargaining and start breathing. He talks about Sisyphus because repetition is the truest portrait of our lives. You push the stone, it falls. You push again. It's not a punishment if you stop expecting a finish line. It's the rhythm of being here. The fatigue I feel isn't failure. It's the cost of that rhythm. I'm not malfunctioning. I'm awake, and yet the modern world deepens the grind. We added speed to every surface. Information, travel, opinions, and called it progress. Maybe it is. But speed is a solvent. It dissolves attention, and attention is where meaning grows. Strip attention, and everything flattens. I still live it. The endless scroll that tastes like activity, the messages that feel like proximity, the victories that never touch the part of me that needs touching. I know the motions of joy. I miss the contact. I keep hearing people say, I'm tired, with a smile that's half confession, half apology. We apologize for the symptoms of being conscious. Camus wouldn't. He'd call it lucidity. The moment you recognize that what you're fighting isn't your life, but your expectation that life should feel like a crescendo. He'd say, stop auditioning for a world that doesn't have a role to give you. Write your own lines and perform them in a room that doesn't clap. There's a way to live inside tiredness. without becoming it. I learned this one morning when I did nothing heroic. I made coffee. I stood by the window and watched steam lift like a small weather system. I felt the cup warm my hands and didn't try to extract a lesson. 10 seconds later, the world had changed. Not the outer world, but the angle of my gaze. The day looked the same. My attention had stopped running. I wasn't rested, but I wasn't resisting. The resistance takes more from me than the fatigue itself. Someone will ask, isn't this resignation? No. Resignation says, I give up. What I'm practicing says, I give in to the fact that I'm alive. Camus calls this revolt, not rage, fidelity. The decision to keep faith with the moment, even when the moment won't promise me anything. The decision to be loyal to my breath when meaning refuses to report for duty. If the universe is indifferent, then my care becomes radical. I walk out and the city is doing its impatient ballet. A courier blowing through reds, a woman on a call braided with apology, a child dragging a backpack like gravity doubled. We are an orchestra with no conductor and too many metronomes, and yet inside this chaos, little kindnesses flash, a door held, a laugh traded, eyes softening for a second. These details are my fuel now. They're small, yes, but small is where reality lives. The big questions get headlines. The small answers get you through the next hour. Fatigue taught me to measure time differently. I used to think a day was a block you conquered. Now it's a sequence of rooms you visit. Some rooms are bright, some are dim, some you pass through quickly. I don't try to love every room. I try not to lie in any of them. The lie is always the same, that this should feel different than it does, that I should be different than I am. That lie is heavier than the stone. Camus refuses lies. He refuses the escape routes, hope as anesthesia, despair as theater. He keeps me on the ground. He says, accept limits and you'll discover space. At first, this sounds backward, but I find it true. The moment I accept that I won't always be inspired, I stop waiting for inspiration to permit my life. The moment I accept that I will be tired again tomorrow, I stop negotiating with tomorrow like it owes me a miracle. The miracle is the ordinary continuing anyway. I used to think the cure for tiredness was a new life. New city, new work, new faces. Sometimes change helps. Often it exports the same weather into better wallpaper. I take my mind with me. The question I didn't want to ask was this: can I be with myself without a future rescuing me? Fatigue's cruelest trick is making me outsource my peace. It tells me the next version of me will know how to live. Camus drags me back to now and says, this version is the only one you ever get. There's a moment in the day, usually noon, when the mind tries to sign a treaty with apathy. It says, let's coast, let's blur, let's make the hours shapeless. Sometimes I agree. I scroll through strangers and call it rest. But afterwards I feel worse, not because scrolling is evil, but because I traded contact for frictionless motion. Rest is contact without demand. Drift is motion without contact. They feel different in my bones. I can't lie to my bones. When the weight is too much, I practice smaller. 10 seconds of looking out a window, 3 breaths counted on a fingertip, 1 honest sentence to a friend, even if the sentence is, I'm empty. This isn't productivity, it's repair. Camus would approve, not because he's an advocate of self-care trends, but because he knows rebellion is made of tiny fidelities. The stone doesn't move by manifesto, it moves by inches. I had to rewrite my contract with meaning. The old contract said, deliver significance or I withdraw affection. The new one says, I'll give attention and let significance decide for itself. This makes my days less cinematic and more bearable. It also surprises me. Meaning shows up when I stop extorting it. A line of music hits harder than an award. A half smile exchanged on a subway heals more than 1,000 opinions. Meaning isn't rare. Extraction is exhausting. There's a paradox. The more I chase feeling alive, the more counterfeit my life feels. The more I let the day be just a day, the more alive I feel inside it. Camus warned me about this, the human tendency to demand a theater of experience so large that we miss the stage we're on. He prefers the small scene played without pretense. So do I. A sandwich honestly eaten is better than a philosophy dishonestly lived. We are all tired of life because we set it impossible terms. We want permanence from what is built of water. We want applause from a sky that has never clapped. We want to carry tomorrow on our backs and then wonder why our spine hurts. Camus didn't see a fix, he saw a posture. You stand upright without promise. You look the horizon in the eye, and you stop asking it to move closer. Sometimes I imagine Sisyphus pausing halfway, not at the top. The myth gives him no top. But in that steep center where your thighs shake and the lungs audition for escape. He pauses, not to despair, but to reroute his gaze. He looks out, not up. The hill is not all there is. There are flowers at the edges. There is sky. Not answering, but present. He breathes, not to optimize, but because breathing is what living sounds like from the inside. Then he pushes again, not because he believes in triumph, because he believes in trying. That trying is a humble word. It has saved me. On days when I can't love, I can try not to harm. When I can't produce, I can try to be honest. When I can't be brave, I can try to be here. Trying is the human-sized version of meaning. It grants me dignity without spectacle. The culture wants spectacle. Camus wants sincerity. I'm learning to prefer the second. It's quiet. It doesn't perform. It doesn't convert my life into a demonstration of anything. It allows me to be unfinished and still real, tired and still worthy, ordinary and still radiant, where light happens to fall. I used to be afraid that the tiredness meant I'd lost my capacity for joy. But joy isn't gone. It's out of costume. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives like a hand that finds mine without announcement. It arrives like laughter that survives the day. It arrives like the sudden, ridiculous tenderness I feel toward a stranger carrying groceries up too many stairs. I don't ask why. I let it. The mind can draft the question later. The heart wants the contact now. If I'm honest, there are still nights I'm tempted by the great escape, reinvention so total it erases me. But I know my patterns. I would unpack the same old ache in a better room. So I practice presence like a craft. I learn the grain of it, the way a carpenter learns wood, the knots, the veining, the stubborn board that won't plane smooth. Presence is work. But it's the kind that pays in more of itself. Camus said, live to the point of tears. I don't hear melodrama in it. I hear precision. Live so attentively that the membrane between you and the world thins. Let the wind arrive unfiltered. Let the day mark you. Tears aren't proof of weakness. They're proof that the seal has been broken, that life has entered. We are all tired of life because life is heavier than the slogans we put on it. Camus saw that we try to replace prayer with progress and end up worshiping speed. He saw that we drown in options and feel less free. He saw that consciousness would always outpace comfort. He saw us standing where I stand now, at the edge of a cliff that's not a cliff at all, just the honest view of a horizon that doesn't move. So what do? I stop making ultimatums to a universe that doesn't negotiate. I make vows to myself instead, to breathe, to return, to be kind when I can, and quiet when I can't, to make one thing well, to thank the day for coming, even when it arrives empty-handed, to call a friend before my mind builds its lonely palace, to lie down when the body asks and stand when the spirit can. I don't owe the world a performance. I owe it a presence. That presence won't fix anything. It will make things real. And real is the only thing that can hold me. The fatigue doesn't vanish under these terms. It changes its temperature. It's no longer the fever of resistance. It's the warmth of exertion. The kind you feel after swimming, after weeding a garden, after crying the true cry. It's not pleasant, but it belongs to me. It tells me I'm alive at full weight, not at the feathered edge. Night comes, the good kind, the kind that deepens rather than erases. I sit by the window. The city softens its jaw. Somewhere a siren moves like a thread of red across a dark fabric. I breathe and don't narrate it. There's a small yes in me that doesn't need a reason. It isn't triumph. It isn't optimism. It's consent. Consent to be the person who is breathing right now in this room under this unanswering sky with this human heart that won't stop reaching for a light it doesn't need in order to see. If you ask me what to do with this tiredness, I'll tell you what I tell myself. Stop asking the day to be extraordinary. Ask it to be honest. Then meet it honestly. Make breakfast. Touch water. Say a true sentence. Look out a window long enough for the window to look back. Put your hand on your chest and call the beating by its right name. Life unargued. When you can, help someone carry a thing that's heavier than it looks. When you can't, set your own down and rest beside it without shame. Tomorrow the stone will be at the bottom again. Of course it will. That's not a failure. That's the system. But I will be at the bottom too, and I will be breathing, and I will have learned once more that absence of meaning is not absence of value. The stone gives me a way to touch the world with my strength. The hill gives me a way to discover my pace. The climb gives me a way to be here without asking for elsewhere. Camus saw it coming, that we would grow tired of the promises, the programs, the theater of meaning. He also saw a way through that wasn't escape. It was intimacy. Intimacy with the real. With the cold water on your face, with the steam rising from a cup, with the laughter that arrives like a small rebellion in the middle of a difficult afternoon, with the breath that keeps taking you back into the world, even when the world won't perform the miracle on command. I'm tired. You're tired. We are all tired of life. But listen to what's underneath that sentence when you say it softly. The wish not to be numb, the wish to be held by something we don't have to earn, the wish to live without a reason bigger than living. That wish is not a flaw. It's the invincible summer speaking from the depth of winter. It isn't asking for the world to change. It's asking for us to arrive. So I arrive as I am, not rested, but ready. Ready to do the small things that keep reality close. Ready to push the stone without hating the hill. Ready to love without demanding forever. Ready to be ordinary in a way that doesn't diminish me, but returns me to a scale that fits. And when the morning comes, I'll stand, not because I found a meaning grand enough to lift me, but because I remembered an older truth. I don't need a reason to live. I need the willingness to live. The willingness is here. It's small and stubborn and enough. I go to sleep with that vow in my mouth like a seed. I wake and water it. The day begins. It doesn't roar. It hums. I hum with it. That is our truce. That is our rebellion. That is how, tired as we are, we keep going. Morning again. I hear the kettle before I open my eyes. The sound is small but steady, a thread that pulls me from sleep back into the same world. I used to dread this return, as though every waking was a demand to perform. But lately, waking feels different, not lighter, just less false. I don't pretend that the day will fix me. I only agree to meet it. That's the secret no one told me. You don't heal by being certain. You heal by being sincere. There's a kind of peace in no longer pretending that I'm supposed to be radiant all the time. The light comes through the cracks. It's enough that it comes at all. When I step outside, the air is sharp, and for a moment, I'm new. The world is still doing its work. The clouds indifferent, the wind carrying whatever it can. There's no message in it, but there is contact. Maybe that's what I was missing all along, not meaning contact. The feeling of touching a reality without asking it to explain itself. Camus would say, this is revolt. To live without appeal. To stop trying to be comforted by an uncaring universe and instead become intimate with its silence. The silence stops feeling hostile when I stop demanding it to speak. It becomes a space, not a void, a space wide enough to live in. I walk. The city hums around me, not angry, not kind, just awake. Everyone I pass is carrying something unseen. Some look strong, but their eyes say otherwise. Some look lost, but they're still moving. We're all participants in this quiet rebellion, still breathing, still showing up, still playing our small roles in the theater of persistence. The fatigue is still there. It doesn't vanish. It integrates. It becomes a texture of the self. It keeps me humble, reminds me that to be alive is to be unfinished. I don't need to transcend tiredness. I need to learn its rhythm, to rest when it asks, to move when I can, to forgive myself when I can't. Sometimes I sit by the window and let the day happen without me. I watch the light crawl across the floor and fade again. I think of Camus writing, smoking, looking at the sea, aware of death, but more interested in sunlight. He didn't worship despair. He studied it until it revealed its opposite. He found that even in meaninglessness, there's room for tenderness, that even absurdity has a heartbeat. I think about that often, that the answer was never to escape the absurd, but to live alongside it with grace, to let life be contradictory and still bow to it like art. We are all tired, yes, but maybe our tiredness is proof that we've been paying attention, that we have not gone numb, that we still care enough to be affected. The world we inherited is loud and accelerating, but the heart is still slow. Maybe the task now is not to keep up, but to slow down until we can hear ourselves again, to walk backward toward stillness, to find what is human beneath what is urgent. In that slowness, life becomes audible again, a whisper, not a command. The whisper says, you're not failing, you are simply alive. And being alive is heavier than anyone warned you, but it's also softer than you think. I used to look for grand awakenings, the one conversation, the one love, the one idea that would transform me. Now, I look for smaller awakenings, the way my breath steadies after laughter, The way a song feels different when I'm honest with myself. The way dusk sits on my shoulders like a coat that fits. If the world is absurd, then gentleness is philosophy. To be kind despite exhaustion is rebellion. To care when you're empty is defiance. To see beauty without needing it to last is wisdom. That's what Camus saw coming, that our century would run out of illusions, that we grow tired not from work, but from wanting too much from life. And he left us this quiet truth. We don't need to escape the tiredness. We need to inhabit it fully until it softens into something else. Presence. So I end each day not looking for purpose, but looking for honesty. Did I touch life even once? Did I notice something real? Did I let the moment, however brief, be enough? If the answer is yes, even once, that's a good day. When the night finally arrives, I don't fight it anymore. I lie down and let the dark wash over me. Somewhere in the distance, a train moves like a slow heartbeat. I breathe. I don't ask for tomorrow to be better. I ask only to meet it when it comes. We are all tired of life, yes, but beneath that tiredness is something unkillable, a pulse, a will, a small stubborn yes. It's the same yes that keeps the heart beating after heartbreak, the same yes that makes a child reach for light, the same yes that built every poem, every song, every act of love in a universe that doesn't guarantee anything. That yes is the human spirit. That yes is why we're still here. And if Camus were sitting beside me now, maybe he'd smile quietly and say, "You see, you've already answered your question." Because to be tired and still alive is not failure, it's proof. Proof that the flame, however faint, still burns. I don't remember the first time I said it out loud. I'm tired of life. But I remember the quiet after. The sentence didn't echo. It absorbed. It was like placing a stone in a river and watching the water form itself around the truth. No collapse, no explosion, just reality rearranging itself to make room for what I finally admitted. Since then, the sentence has softened. It no longer feels like a verdict. It feels like weather. Some days storm, some days clear, most days a mix of both. I've stopped asking for a perfect climate. I carry an umbrella and walk. I meet people who think tiredness is a moral failure. They speak as if energy were virtue and fatigue a confession of spiritual laziness. I used to flinch at that, explain myself, prove my usefulness. I don't anymore. I'm not here to audition for an audience that keeps changing judges. I'm here to live as a person with a heartbeat and limits in a century that mistakes velocity for vision. What I want now is honest stamina. Not the caffeinated bravado of a sprint, but the human pace of a pilgrimage, a way of moving that doesn't betray my nervous system, a way of living that doesn't ask my soul to shout over the machinery of the age. This is where Camus helps again and again. He gives me an ethic for weary days, lucidity. He says there is dignity in clarity. If I can tell the truth about my condition, no ornament, no alibi, a path appears. Not a highway, a foot trail, narrow, winding, real. And on this path, I keep finding small companions. A book with margin notes from a stranger who struggled the way I do. A barista who slides me a cup like an offering. A friend who answers a message with 3 words. I'm with you, and means them. The world is not generous with certainty, but it still smuggles kindness through the cracks. If I walk slowly enough, I catch it at the border. We talk a lot about resilience. We make it sound like armor, but the resilience that saves me looks more like permeability. When I'm armored, nothing gets in. Not the harm, but not the help either. Permeability means I can be moved without being erased. It means I can let the world pass through me and still remain myself. It means I can cry at noon and laugh at 2, and both are true. I learned to stop negotiating with the day. The old deal was absurd. I promised productivity in exchange for permission to exist. I paid in advance, with sleep, with joy, with presence, and the day still charged interest. So I tore up the contract. I signed a simpler one with myself. Be here. If I can be here, I can decide the next right thing. If I can't be here, no strategy will rescue me. Sometimes the next right thing is laughably small. Wash one bowl, open the window, put both feet on the floor, and feel the weight of a body that refuses to vanish, even when the mind feels like smoke. These acts don't fix the architecture of my life. They lay one real brick in the wall I stand beside. We're all tired in our ways. Some of us from too much labor, some from too little meaning, some from carrying secrets that never learned to walk on their own. The temptation is always the same: make numbness a lifestyle. But numbness is expensive. It charges interest in color. It collects payments in wonder. One day you look up and the sky is technically blue, but it doesn't touch you. That's when you know the cost is too high. So I practice sensation, not indulgent sensation. Cold water on the wrists. A slice of citrus that interrupts the taste of failure. Music in the kitchen at a volume that argues with my thoughts. I'm not chasing bliss. I'm reminding my nervous system that we still live here. Camus would say, this is revolt at the smallest scale, a fidelity to the concrete against the seduction of abstraction. When despair speaks, it loves big words, meaningless, pointless, forever, never. The counterspell is small nouns: cup, spoon, step, light. The counterspell is verbs in the present tense: breathe, stand, notice, lift. There are days I still want to disappear into a better version of myself. The one who wakes at 5 without effort, who writes like a river, who forgives like a saint, who never Googles what's wrong with me at 2 a.m., but wanting that person erases the person I actually am, who has a different intelligence, a different tempo, a different way of loving the world. I don't need to be the river. I need to find where water already moves in me and widen the channel. I've stopped trying to solve loneliness with performance. Loneliness that meets applause learns the wrong lesson. What I need is companionship that survives my silence. People who can sit with me while I fail to be impressive. People who don't need me to be a brand. The modern world sells attention. I'm looking for regard. The steady gaze that doesn't vanish when the spotlight does. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if we all dropped the posture for one day. Just one day of regular faces. One day of admitted fatigue. One day of I don't know offered without shame. I imagine the relief traveling through offices and kitchens like wind through curtains. I imagine productivity dropping and humanity spiking. I imagine meaning arriving precisely because we stopped pressuring it to perform. This is not an argument against effort. It's an argument for honest effort. The kind that keeps the body in the conversation. The kind that doesn't spend tomorrow to buy a decoration for today. The kind that leaves a little capacity for joy to climb the fence when it gets curious. I look at Sisyphus differently now. I used to picture his face set with grim determination. Now I see a softness in him. Not resignation, recognition. He knows the hill will not end. He also knows the hill is where he gets to feel himself alive. The stone is practice, not punishment. The descent is not defeat, it's breath. The ascent is not victory, it's return. Return has become a sacred word I leave myself 20 times a day. I return 21. The extra return is grace. It's how I outnumber absence. It's how I become trustworthy to myself. On the bus, in the late afternoon, I watch people sleep in public, heads tipping, mouths parting, bodies claiming what the schedule won't grant. There is something holy about it. They look defenseless and therefore profound. No one sleeping on a bus is curating anything. It is the opposite of a feed. It is the human organism refusing to be only useful. I wonder what salvation would even mean for us now. I don't think it's escape. I don't think it's winning. I think it's contact again. Contact with reality, with each other, with the inner weather we keep trying to outrun. I think salvation is less like a door opening to heaven and more like a window being cracked in a stale room. The first breath is always rough. Then the air finds you. When I am at my worst, I try to be kind to someone else, not as a strategy, but because it breaks the mirror that keeps me trapped inside myself. The smallest service rewires the room. I cannot be the center and the servant at the same time. Service returns me to scale. At this scale, life fits. It's strange how quickly the world becomes tolerable when I stop making it a referendum on my value. The world doesn't know how to measure me and never will. That's not a tragedy. That's an invitation to stop asking for a verdict. I can live a beautiful life that never satisfies a spreadsheet. I can die having loved well and still be unsearchable by metrics. The data won't mind. The people will remember. There's a sentence I keep on the inside of my mouth for emergency use. Let the day be what it is. It's not a spell that changes the day. It changes the angle of my stance. I lean less, brace less, listen more. When the day is loud, I lower my voice. When the day is thin, I make soup. When the day is cruel, I add softness where I can reach. When the day is benevolent, I don't ruin it with suspicion. If someone asks me for instructions, not inspiration, actual instructions, I would say this: wake slowly if you can. If you can't, forgive the velocity. Put your feet on the ground and call it an accomplishment. Drink water like you're answering a question your body asked overnight. Touch something living that doesn't demand meaning from you. A plant, a dog, your own face. Write 2 true sentences about how you feel and don't publish them anywhere. Move your body until your thoughts have to follow. Make one thing, a sandwich, a bed, an apology. Choose a corner of your life to keep humane. Defend it from spectacle. Defend it from the myth that you must be more than a person to be worthy of your breath. Then rest, not to earn tomorrow, but to inhabit today. Rest because the hill is long and there is music in walking, not in sprinting. Rest because even Sisyphus, in the myth that men love to make cruel, must have sat sometimes, must have watched the horizon, must have let the world be large enough to carry his gaze. Rest because your life is not a machine and because tired is not a sin. When night comes, I count my certainties. They are few and sufficient. I will lose what I love. I will love anyway. I will not be remembered by most. I will remember to be kind. The world will not clap. I will learn to hear quieter applause. The sky will stay silent. I will stop asking it to speak and start learning its grammar of light. This is not the thrilling rebellion of manifestos. It's the gentle revolution of staying. staying in the conversation with reality, staying in the body that squirrels away joy in ridiculous places, staying with people I don't fully understand and letting them complicate me into someone kinder. I think Camus would nod at this. It is not heroic, but it is human, and that was always his standard. He didn't want saints. He wanted witnesses, people willing to look at the world without anesthesia and still choose tenderness. People who could say with a straight face and a warm eye, I know the score and I'm still here. So here I am, tired and here. I take tomorrow's promises down from the shelf and replace them with simple tools. A pen, a kettle, shoes I can walk in, a phone with the names of people who know my worst days and like me anyway. I don't ask for a path. I ask for a next step. The step appears, as it always does, disguised as something unremarkable. I take it. The morning after that will come, and I will greet it not with a demand, but with a vow. I will try to be faithful to what is real. I will not flee into performance. I will not punish myself for being mortal. I will make room for the unglamorous forms of beauty that gather at the edges of usefulness. I will refuse the lie that my life requires an audience to be worth living. And when the old sentence returns, I'm tired of life, I will answer without drama. I know. Let's be gentle. Let's keep going. Because beneath the tiredness, there is the oldest affirmation, steady and unshowy, like a lighthouse that refuses to brag about its light. I am alive. I am capable of contact. I am allowed to be here without justification. That permission is not granted by the world. It's granted by being itself. The breath agrees. The heart signs. The day, indifferent and generous, opens the door a few inches wider. I step through, not because I'm ready, but because I'm willing. Willing is the better word. Willing keeps the flame when ready won't. And so the story continues, not toward an ending that explains anything, but through 1,000 ordinary scenes that don't need to. The kettle sings, the city wakes, I push, the stone moves, the hill holds. Somewhere a stranger laughs and doesn't know they've saved me. Somewhere I do the same for someone I'll never meet. The sky refuses to speak, and I stop mistaking that for silence. It's music without words. I listen,